Ever wondered why your brilliant idea gets shot down? Or, why that perfectly crafted email just vanishes, like poof, into the ether?
Yes, seemingly unread.
Exactly. Today on the deep dive, we're really getting into that. We're peeling back the layers on effective communication.
Hmm.
We're diving deep into Profiling Your Readers by Richard Johnson and Sheehan Pearson.
Great source for this.
It really is. Our mission today: figure out the hidden psychology, what gets people to actually say yes.
Right.
So you can cut through all the noise and make sure your message actually lands. Think of it as your shortcut to being properly informed, but without, the information overload.
Yeah, getting straight to what matters.
Okay, let's unpack this then, before we even type a word. What is it that fundamentally makes someone accept an idea or take action? What flips that yes switch?
Well, it really seems to boil down to three primary motivators. First up are needs.
Okay.
And this isn't just the super basic stuff like needing food or safety, though obviously those are huge drivers. Think job security, right?
Yeah.
Employment.
Sure, fundamental.
But it also goes higher up. Needs for achievement, respect, freedom, even things like the chance to be creative. If your idea taps into one of those needs,
You're already halfway there.
pretty much you're tapping into something powerful.
Okay, so needs is one. What's next?
Second, we've got values. Now, these are really deep-rooted.
How so?
They're tied into a person's identity, their culture, family, life experiences. Values are those fundamental beliefs.
Mm.
Things like community being important or fairness, personal integrity.
The core stuff.
Exactly. And they heavily influence decisions because they shape how someone even interprets what you're saying. It's like their core operating system.
Got it. Needs, values.
Whereas
The third one.
And finally, attitudes. These are, well, simply your readers' feelings about your team, maybe your whole company, or even just the subject itself.
So baggage comes into play here.
Big time. Past experiences are crucial. A missed deadline from your team last year. Or maybe an ethical slip-up, folks remember. Yeah, or even just a general negative reputation. That can create a negative attitude, making them resistant right off the bat, no matter how solid your argument seems.
That breakdown: needs, values, attitudes, that's really clear. But I'm wondering, where do people typically mess this up in practice? Is it just not knowing these things, or is there a common assumption that trips them up?
The real aha moment here isn't just knowing about needs, values, and attitudes. It's realizing that your default setting,
Which is
assuming everyone sees the world exactly like you do, through your lens, that's the silent killer of good communication. That's the most common mistake.
right, assuming your priorities are their priorities.
Precisely. People come from such diverse backgrounds, different communities, different cultures, and all that diversity means they'll interpret information differently. They'll react to your stuff in ways you might not expect. Understanding that is really the bedrock of effective reader profiling. That's why you can't just, blast information out there and hope it sticks for everyone. It won't.
Okay, so understanding the why behind a yes or no, that's step one. Crucial. But maybe the bigger challenge, I think, for a lot of us is figuring out who exactly we're even talking to in the first place.
Yeah, identifying the audience.
The source uses this really great framework, these layers of readers. It seems super practical. Can you walk us through those concentric circles?
Absolutely, yeah. Think of it like ripples in a pond.
Yeah.
You, the writer, are in the very center. Then the first ring, the closest one, hold your primary readers.
Okay, who are they?
These are your main audience,
Yeah.
the action takers. They're the ones who absolutely must make a decision or take some kind of action based on what you wrote.
Gotcha.
Think about that example, Dwayne's project, proposing an incinerator. The city council, they're primary readers. They have to approve it or reject it. They're the final decision makers.
Makes sense. So who's in the next ring out?
Moving outwards, that next circle is your secondary readers. Think of them as the advisors.
Advisors.
Yeah, these are often experts or stakeholders who counsel the primary readers. They influence the decision, even if they don't make the final call themselves.
Okay, like who in Dwayne's case?
In Dwayne's project, this would be people like the city lawyers, maybe local hospitals, the neighborhood association, environmental groups. They all provide really important input.
Right, feeding information to the council.
Exactly. Then, beyond them, you've got the tertiary readers. These are the evaluators.
Evaluators, how are they different?
Well, they have an interest in the project, but they aren't directly involved in the decision itself. They might be, say, local news reporters, maybe auditors, historians, community activists, even politicians not on the council.
Okay.
For Dwayne's incinerator, this includes reporters, the State Board of Health, maybe the NAACP, the wider health industry. They're watching, shaping public opinion, maybe amplifying things or criticizing.
So they're watching from the sidelines, but their reactions matter.
Definitely. And then finally, there's one more crucial layer, gatekeepers. These are the supervisors.
Ah, the bosses.
Often, yeah. Or editors. These are the people who review your work before it even gets to the primary readers.
Okay.
In Dwayne's case, his boss, the city engineer. Classic gatekeeper. They control access. They can stop your message dead in its tracks if it doesn't meet their standards or, their needs.
Wow, this layered approach is really insightful. It's almost like building an org chart specifically for your communication efforts.
That's a good way to put it.
But I can hear some listeners thinking, isn't this just overcomplicating things? I know who my boss is. I know who the client is. What's the biggest blind spot people have when they think they've got their audience covered, but they're actually missing some of these other layers?
Yeah, that's a fair question. The biggest blind spot is usually neglecting those secondary, tertiary, and especially the gatekeeper layers.
How so?
Well, you might write the perfect message for your primary audience, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tailored just for them. But if you're gatekeeper, your boss has totally different priorities or concerns.
It might never even get seen.
Exactly. Or if those secondary readers, the advisors, strongly recommend against it based on their criteria, your perfect message could still fail. It's like building a really beautiful house, but forgetting the foundation, or maybe forgetting to get the city permits.
That's a great analogy. The permits, the gatekeepers. Okay.
Yeah. The whole structure can collapse if you ignore those parts.
So we've got our cast list now, the primary action takers, the key advisors, the watchful evaluators, and those crucial gatekeepers. But just identifying them isn't enough, right? How do we start speaking their specific language? This feels like where the real tailoring happens,
Right.
mapping their unique needs, values, and attitudes onto these specific roles.
Precisely. And that's where something like the reader analysis worksheet comes in super handy. It helps you pinpoint how these different reader types will have distinct needs, values, and attitudes about the very same topic. Let's stick with Dwayne's incinerator project to make it concrete. Think about needs. The city council, our primary readers, their main need is for reliable information and impartial data so they can make a defensible decision.
Right, they need the facts.
But compare that to Valley Medical, a secondary reader. Their need is much more specific. Facts about emissions. What exactly is coming out of that smokestack?
Very different focus.
Totally. Or the city engineer, the gatekeeper. He needs reliable data for decision, too. But his context is signing off on the report itself, making sure it's sound. Their needs are related, sure, but clearly distinct.
Okay, that makes sense for needs. What about values?
Okay, values. Our primary readers, the city council, they likely value things like citizen safety and maybe economic development for the city, big picture stuff. But a secondary reader, like Valley Medical, might put a high value on maintaining the character of Blue Park if the incinerator is near there. Much more localized value.
Right.
And the city engineer, our gatekeeper, his values might be more about minimal trouble and keeping a low profile for the project, avoiding controversy. See how different those are.
Yeah, wildly different driving forces.
These differing values will profoundly shape how receptive they are to the exact same piece of information.
Okay. Needs, values. Attitudes must vary just as much then.
Absolutely. Attitudes. The city council might approach the incinerator idea feeling, say, optimistic about potential benefits, but also pretty cautious given the risks.
The mix.
Yeah. But the city engineer, the gatekeeper, he might be totally impartial to the project itself. He doesn't care if it gets built or not, but he's very concerned that the report may cause tensions.
Concerned about the fallout.
Exactly. Concerned about stirring up trouble within the community or city hall. So each group is coming at this with a different emotional starting point, a different lens. And if you don't acknowledge that,
your message just bounces right off.
Or worse, it backfires.
That's such a powerful framework. It really drives home that this isn't just about, general knowledge of who you're talking to. It's about digging into the specifics for each group to build something truly targeted. You're not just writing one document. You're kind of crafting multiple messages within one, or at least ensuring one document hits all those specific concerns.
That's a good way to think about it, yeah. Addressing all those facets.
And it seems like there's even more to it. It's not just who they are or what drives them, but where and how they're actually going to encounter your document. The source calls these contexts, right? And they seem just as vital, because a brilliant report delivered in the wrong way or at the wrong time, well, it might as well not exist.
Precisely. Context is king, as they say. The context analysis worksheet helps map these external factors. There are 4 really critical contexts to think about.
Okay, what's the first?
First is the physical context. Literally, where will the document be used? Is it going to be read in a quiet office or out on a noisy job site? Or maybe at home after dinner? For the city council, they're likely reading it in their formal office setting or maybe during a public meeting, potentially with distractions. But other city government folks, they might be accessing reports mainly online from various locations.
That affects format, readability.
Hugely. Which leads right into the second context, mobile context.
Screens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Will readers be looking at this on a phone, a tablet, a laptop on the go? This dramatically influences how you design the document.
Right, tiny screen versus big monitor.
Yeah. Reports for the city council probably need to be legible on mobile for quick reviews between meetings. Maybe more technical versions need to be easily searchable and navigable on those devices for advisors or evaluators digging into details, if it's a pain to read on their device.
They just won't read it, or they'll skim and miss things.
Exactly. Then context number 3, the economic context.
Right.
Basic, yeah. What are the financial implications for the readers? What costs or benefits do they see tied to accepting or rejecting your ideas? The city council, for instance, is probably looking to improve city economics through a project like the incinerator. The readers' company, maybe Dover City itself, might be focused squarely on job creation or the overall financial plus, if you're not talking about the bottom line or community prosperity in a way that resonates with them.
You're missing a huge piece of their motivation.
A key motivator, absolutely. And finally, the fourth context, ethical context.
This sounds important.
It really is. What are the social, environmental, or legal issues wrapped up in this? What rights, values, or maybe unstated assumptions are at play?
Like with the incinerator location.
Right. The city council might be deeply concerned about potential racial issues if the location seems unfair, or obvious environmental issues. Dover City, meanwhile, might be worried about the infringement of people's rights, or the city becoming liable if a mistake happens down the line.
These feel like the landmines.
They absolutely can be. These are often the most sensitive areas, and just ignoring them or glossing over them can completely derail a project, no matter how good the economics look.
What's so fascinating here is realizing how much these external things, where they read it, what device, the money involved, the ethical angles, how much they shape not just the words you choose, but the whole presentation. The accessibility.
Totally.
It makes you think how many times we've probably put out perfectly good information that just landed in the wrong context, and it just got ignored or dismissed.
Happens all the time. We focus so much on the what that we forget the how, where, and when.
Okay, so we've built this really comprehensive reader profile. We're thinking about their motivations, their roles, their specific needs and values, the context they're in. How do we pull all of this together? How do we actually use these insights to create documents that are truly persuasive, truly informative, and actually get the results we want?
Yeah, that's the payoff, right?
Yeah.
The whole goal of this deep profiling is to make your communication way more effective, more informative, more persuasive, specifically tailored for each reader or reader group.
Right.
And the sources give a fantastic illustration of this with those 2 contrasting documents about the West Nile virus.
Oh, yeah, the fact sheet versus the clinical one.
Exactly. You've got the West Nile virus fact sheet on one hand and the clinical evaluation and disease document on the other. Same topic, radically different execution because of the audience.
Okay, break down the fact sheet first.
So, the West Nile virus fact sheet, that's designed squarely for the general public. You notice immediately it uses very action-oriented language. It's non-technical.
Simple words.
Yeah, simple, direct words. It's got really clear headings to help people scan and find what they need quickly. It uses relatable examples to make the point stick. The whole thing is geared towards being easily digestible and, crucially, actionable for someone without a medical background.
Its job is to tell people what to do.
Precisely. How to protect themselves.
Yeah.
Now, contrast that sharply with the clinical evaluation and disease West Nile document.
Okay, what's different there?
Totally different beast. This one's for doctors, nurses, public health experts. So it's written in highly technical language.
Jargon is expected.
Jargon is expected, yeah. It focuses on detailed clinical information, diagnostic criteria, treatment protocols, epidemiological data, not really immediate public action steps.
Much more analytical.
Very analytical.
Yeah.
The tone is far less personal, more objective. It's for professionals who need precise data, scientific rigor. They're not looking for a simple how-to. They need the deep clinical picture.
So same virus, two completely different documents serving different needs for different profiled audiences.
Exactly. They achieve totally different purposes, and that tailoring comes directly from understanding the distinct profiles of their intended readers.
What really stands out there is just how critical it is to adapt everything, the language, the level of detail you go into, even visual things like headings based on that reader profile you've carefully put together. It really hammers home. One size absolutely does not fit all.
Not even close.
Now, most of our deep dive here has focused on profiling readers within, let's say, a familiar context, maybe your own company, your own city. But what happens when your readers are literally across the globe? When they're looking at your message through entirely different cultural lenses, that adds a whole other layer of complexity, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. A massive layer, and arguably an increasingly important one in our connected world.
It's not just about their job title anymore. It's about their entire worldview potentially being different.
Exactly. This is where understanding global and transcultural communication becomes just critical. And
Yeah.
honestly, getting this wrong, it can lead to way more than just your message failing. It can cause serious miscommunication, even real offense.
Okay, so how does culture influence things? What do we need to watch out for?
Well, it impacts pretty much everything. Take content, for example. The sources mention how in China, there's often a preference for building long-term trust first, rather than going for direct persuasion right away. Contrast that with, say, Israel, where communication tends to be much more direct. Or think about how in many Asian cultures, protecting one's reputation is paramount. And Japan is famous for having very indirect ways of saying no. You might not even realize you've been turned down.
Wow, okay, so content strategy has to shift. What else?
Organization is another big one, how you structure your argument. Chinese communication, for instance, might follow a logical flow that feels quite different from what Western cultures might consider common sense.
Different logic.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas Israel, again, often prefers that main point first approach. Get straight to it.
And style, the way it sounds.
Huge variations in style. Chinese writing, depending on context, can be quite casual or even seem aggressive to outsiders. Arabic writing often uses much more ornamental, flowery language than is typical in, say, American business writing.
Right, more embellishment.
Yeah. And don't even get me started on visuals.
What about visuals?
Colors can mean totally different things. Black and white, for instance, have strong associations in many cultures. Specific colors in China carry specific weights. Even hand gestures, depicted in images using the left hand versus the right hand, could be offensive in parts of South Asia or India.
Wow.
Or images like white flowers, a symbol of death in parts of Asia. Things you wouldn't even think twice about can send a completely wrong message. And some cultures might just find a document overloaded with graphics to be distracting or unprofessional.
Okay, this feels like a minefield. How do you even begin to navigate this successfully? Are there strategies?
There are definitely strategies. It's not impossible. First, and maybe most importantly, listen carefully. Try to really understand the values and the appropriate tone for that culture. Don't just assume.
Okay, listen first.
Second, always aim to be polite, but recognize that what constitutes politeness, like using please and thank you, varies a lot across cultures.
Right. Polite isn't universal.
Third, you have to research the target culture. Use the internet, use company resources, talk to people. Don't just guess based on stereotypes.
Do your homework.
Fourth, and this is a really practical tip, generally avoid humor. Humor is so culturally specific. What's funny in one place can easily be misunderstood or even deeply offensive somewhere else. Just steer clear in professional comms, usually.
Good rule of thumb.
And finally, probably the best resource. Talk to your colleagues. If you have colleagues from that culture or who have worked extensively with it, tap into their knowledge. They've likely learned things the hard way, so you don't have to.
Leverage that internal expertise. That makes a lot of sense.
Definitely.
This whole cultural dimension really raises the stakes, doesn't it? It makes it crystal clear that ignoring these nuances isn't just about failing to get a yes. It can actually damage trust, harm relationships. That's a much bigger problem.
A much higher stakes game, for sure. Building bridges versus burning them.
So we've really covered a lot of ground today. We've taken this deep dive into the honestly fascinating world of profiling your readers. We went from understanding their core motivations, those needs, values, attitudes,
The fundamental.
to categorizing them into those different layers. Primary, secondary, tertiary gatekeepers. then dissecting their unique needs and values within those roles.
It's getting really specific.
Considering their contexts, physical, mobile, economic, ethical, and even just now, navigating the huge complexities of global and transcultural communication.
It's quite a comprehensive picture when you lay it all out.
It really is.
Yeah.
If we try to connect this to the bigger picture, what's the main takeaway?
I think the main thing is realizing that profiling your readers.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't just some, technical checklist you do for formal documents.
Yeah.
It's actually a fundamental skill for any kind of effective communication.
Not just writing reports.
Not at all. At its heart, it's really about empathy. It's about understanding. When you genuinely try to understand who you're talking to, what matters to them, what their world looks like, you can communicate with so much more impact. You build stronger connections. It's foundational.
That's a great way to put it. Empathy is the foundation. Okay, so here's a final thought for you, our listener, to maybe mull over.
Yeah.
How might consciously thinking about profiling your audience, even in just everyday conversations like talks with your family, quick work emails, maybe even social media posts, how might that change the way you communicate? And maybe change the outcomes you achieve?